Hello, welcome to Gator Gossip. Today we are doing it virtual, so a little bit of a change, but we are here with Tyrone of First Up, and this is an amazing organization. I have recently learned about them and am excited to get better clarification on what you guys do. So, Tyrone, take the floor.
First of all, thank you for having me and thank you for accommodating virtual. I've been running all around between 2 or 3 states trying to fight for early
Ooh.
education funding. So my
Mhm.
travel is sometimes hard to get places. Um,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. So First Up is an organization we've been around for almost 60 years now.
Hmm.
But before we were First Up, we were DeVacy. Before that, we were DeVanke. So we were the Delaware Valley Association of Kindergarten Educators and the Delaware Valley Association for the Education of Young Children, and now we are First Up. But
Okay.
our whole mission is to make sure that every family has access to high quality early learning services provided by a well-trained, well-compensated professional.
Hmm.
So so we do everything from working with early educators in their classroom, literally just being mentors to them and
Yeah.
kind of being that extra eye. Because I always tell people if you go to school to become a teacher,
Mm.
it's a lot easier in the book than it is in the classroom,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And no
Yes.
matter and you know this, no matter how good of a teacher you are, having someone who isn't having someone with peanut butter hands pulling your pant leg,
Oh
or,
yeah.
or someone crying because Billy took the blue block and I really wanted the blue block, and all the things that happen, or
Mhm.
even just when engaged in telling a great story, sometimes you
Mm.
can't see every single thing, even though
Yep.
teachers have better peripheral vision than your average person.
Mm-hmm.
So that extra person just to kind of say, you know what I noticed? If we move this over just right here, then
Yeah.
that should stop these kids from knocking over each other's blocks and we'll have less fights. And this will be great.
So
So
you
everything
do
from
that with other school, like you do that with
yes,
preschools? Oh, cool.
yes. We've got 40 staff and about 30 of whom are in the field, we say. Who
Hmm.
literally are going to different childcare facilities, preschools, Head Starts, anywhere we have kids under 5, and
Okay.
trying to offer that individualized advice. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we have different programs. Like for example, our Equip program is one program that's designed to have people do this kind of work in one particular site and help them move through the Keystone Stars process. So,
Mm-hmm.
for listeners that may not be familiar, Keystone Stars is our quality rating system in Pennsylvania, where
Mm-hmm.
you start at licensure with a 1 and you can work your way up to a 4,
Yep.
with basically showing that, I'm willing to provide higher quality than just the basic licensure. My teachers have more education. We're
Yep.
more intentional. We're really thinking about how we're helping the whole family holistically. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a number of, criteria folks go through. So we have people that help with that.
There was a
We also,
lot of things that I realized for the fourth star, like you're mentioning in the Keystone
Mhm,
Star program, it was
mhm.
so much to do with policy and procedure and
Yes,
parents. So
yes.
we had to show our parent teacher conferences. We had to show our community events. We had to make sure our teachers had an hour to lesson plan every week.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it's those things that really help with the preschool. It really, really
Yeah.
does. And you don't think about it until someone like you tells us.
Right. Well, I think what happens, and again, I always say this, most people who get into early education who want to be teachers are
Mhm.
awesome people who want to help kids.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean that we don't like adults or we don't love adults. This means our focus is the kids, right?
Yeah.
So when you talk about, making sure that we have stuff for the families and for the adults, we go,
Mm.
oh yeah. I,
Yep.
I, I guess Jimmy didn't drive himself to school today, did he?
Yep.
Um, but
Exactly.
it's not our focus. And even the stuff like you mentioned, making sure that teachers have curriculum planning time to do
Yes.
their lesson plans.
Yep.
We're so focused on, okay, I want to get the kids out, we have it in our heads,
Hmm.
but we never say, if I actually had an extra hour to stop
Yes.
and be super intentional and
Yep.
think of the fact that I'm reading Dinosaur Roar and I
Mhm.
can add the dinosaurs to my block area and I can get some different color paints. We could, and all these
Yes.
things that we know, but the second we have time to intentionally really think about it, it
Hmm.
takes our teaching to the next level.
Hmm.
And we hope at First Up, we're inspiring people to think that way and just giving some other advice. We're very proud that most of our we call them quality coaches, are really folks who have been in the field themselves and are master teachers,
Yeah.
and can kind of say, you know what, here's a trick that I used. Because again, until you do it,
Mm,
you don't really understand it.
no.
And you know, and I say this even to the parents and families, you know, I'll never tell a parent you don't understand your kid. Of course you do. You're the
Right.
parent.
Right.
But what you may not get is having a room of 20 kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm
Mm-hmm.
a preschool teacher, and even if I have an assistant teacher, 20
Right.
is different than two or three that you might have at
Yes.
home. And it's just a different dynamic. So having people that understand that dynamic and
Mm,
have come through from it, just be extra pair of eyes and go, you know what I
yep.
noticed? 'Cause I always say we have the easy job. It's easy for us to come in and recognize things because we're not the ones doing it.
Yeah.
And you know, it's and you guys know this, and I'm sure all of your listeners and watchers know this. Being an early educator is both one of the most rewarding and one of the toughest jobs at the same time.
Oh gosh,
'Cause-
yes. Yes.
right? There's nothing like a snotty nose hug to make you feel special, right?
It's so heartwarming and it's so
It is.
difficult and it's just like it plays with your emotions because it's this whole family unit and you are if you're a parent then you also have those like parent tendencies. It's
Mhm.
just it's a great place to be, but it can, you know,
But it's
it takes a
hard.
strong person.
It does, and you know, so some of the other things we do, like
Hmm.
my department works specifically on public policy, which typically means making sure the rules and the funding for this
Hmm.
makes sense. And I think that because of my respect for what people like yourself do, is why I push so hard for the funding. Because
Hmm.
unfortunately, you know, most people who work in preschools, Head Starts, the child cares, or family providers in their own home that are licensed, they're not making that much money.
No, no.
And you know,
Mm-mm.
and when I say not that much, I don't even just mean like, well, you know, it's not. I'm not going to be rich, but I'm okay. For a lot of them, like it's bad.
Yes.
Like second, third job, the accepting
Yep.
TANF for food stamps bad for some
Yep.
folks.
Yep.
And you know, I think, and again, I can only speak for me, and I think I can speak for my friends at First Up. We think it's morally wrong
Hmm.
pay so little for a job that's so important, and people take so much time and effort to do well.
Yes.
So, you
Yeah.
know, if and I would say people that when you have your first kid,
Mm.
if you choose or have to, because some people choose and some people have to go back to work relatively
Yeah.
soon,
Yeah.
right? And you are going to take this child to someone who may or may not be a stranger to you.
Hmm.
You want this person to be, you know, of course, all the you want them loving, caring, educate, all that, but you also want them to be well compensated. Because what I
Yes.
don't want is the teacher my kid attaches to, which is what we're seeing so much now, quitting the work for Wawa because
Yep.
Wawa pays more.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so that my department is that's why I said I've been going back and forth. I just got back from Harrisburg. I was down there for a couple of days while the legislature was in session,
Okay.
talking to our policymakers about the fact that we need to fund this better because
Hmm.
teachers and many of them with degrees, you
Oh
know, who have
yeah.
gone to school
Yes.
are making less than the people that park the cars downtown Philadelphia.
Hmm.
And I say that not to bash the car valets and not to say that they shouldn't be paid well. I
Fact.
want everyone to get paid well.
Yep.
But our teachers, especially, shouldn't
Hmm.
have to depend on TANF or food stamps or whatever, or make the decision, do I go out to dinner tonight or do I buy my kid a birthday gift because I can't
Yep.
afford both? And that's
Yep.
unfortunate.
And
So, yeah.
as a business owner, a small
Hmm.
business owner,
Hmm.
the way all the forms that I've been participating in that Jackie
Hmm.
introduced me to, and I'm so thankful because it's this whole new world and realm that I'm like, let's go. Like I am so for it. But it's just the amount of money it takes as a business owner, not only to compensate people who are well deserving of it, but to have flexibility for raises if you want them to stay, to have the money for the benefits in the 401k, to cover sick days. It is, and for me, it's a special needs school. So constantly we have to replace our equipment. We need special this and special that, and the building gets damaged quicker. So it's like,
Hmm.
where's the light at the end of the tunnel sometimes? It's very difficult funding.
It is, and again, I look at this as a moral imperative.
Mhm.
I just don't think it makes sense. I've never met a politician, especially, who says I hate kids. Right?
Never.
Every politician will like. So I'm sure tomorrow I can get 3 or 4 politicians out to your school to take pictures with the kids and
Oh,
smile and
yes.
put their,
Yes.
and that's great. But my thing is, now that you've done that, if you really do care about kids and your
Hmm.
community, let's put our money where our mouths are, and
Hmm.
let's figure out a way to provide compensation that
Yeah.
lets people have a decent life. Because
Yes.
too many times I hear your story, and I know as an owner how
Hmm.
hard it is to try to squeeze out that extra dollar to give someone a little bit more, or
Hmm.
because you want to replace something or you want to do an improvement.
Yep.
And it's funny. I did some guest lecturing at Temple University years ago to their economics department, talk about the
Oh, wow.
economics of childcare,
Hmm.
and they just couldn't believe. They were like, "No, that doesn't make sense.
Yes.
There's no way a business can be stable." I said, "They're not stable."
Nope.
I said that's the key point. That most
Hmm.
of them are holding on like with the old cartoon. You don't know if you remember, they used to hold on the cliff and one finger would fall, another finger would fall. I was like,
Yes.
this is where we are. And
Yes.
typically the owners are finding ways to cut themselves down, and
Hmm.
I'll take a little less, or I'll get a second job, or I'll do this, or to try to just keep their people's heads above water. And
Yep.
it's just not a fair place to be. Um, so again, so like with First Up, our whole thing is how do we help? And like I said, we,
Yep.
we do mentoring. We have a program like Learn and Earn where we help people move towards degrees while they're still working and being able to teach in their own site as opposed to have the student teach somewhere else. We do
Yeah.
conferences, we do workshops. All this stuff is just our whole thing is how do we support you?
Right.
Um, and then also support the families,
Hmm.
because even just figuring out how to choose a childcare. If you
So
have,
difficult.
yeah, I mean, I always make the joke, I've never pushed a child out of my body, obviously,
Right.
but I've never seen a book follow, like an instruction manual follow when the baby comes out. Like
No.
all trying to figure it out. And some of us are lucky enough to have friends and family that can guide us. But
Hmm.
if you don't, or if your friends and family don't actually know what they're looking for,
Yep.
or how do you know this site versus that site? How do I know if a family childcare is better for me versus a center? How do I
Right.
know um, you know, you mentioned you deal with a lot of special needs. How do I
Yeah.
know if to take my child somewhere where someone will recognize and say, I think I'm seeing something. Let's do an evaluation. We're going to help you go through the process.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
because there's so much. So, I apologize. I don't want to take over your podcast here, but I
No.
get passionate because this it should be a no-brainer. This should not be a Democratic
Yes.
issue, a Republican issue, a Libertarian issue, a
No.
conservative issue, a liberal issue. It's a kid issue. And all
Yes.
of us either have kids, know a kid, or were a kid.
Hmm.
So therefore, we should care about the people working with the kids.
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's just my
And
soapbox.
the thing that, a special needs school, all of
Mhm,
my children are diagnosed with something. So it's
mhm,
strictly, majority autistic children. They are all coming from being suspended. They're all coming from being expelled. And that goes back to your point of consulting with teachers, having qualified teachers. Because to play devil's advocate, as a parent, I was there. I have autistic children and they were asked to leave places. So I know that feeling, but I also know on the other end, if that teacher doesn't know what to do,
right.
it isn't safe and they are not treating your child right. They're frustrated, they're angry, they're underpaid, as you said, and they're
Mhm,
ready to walk out yesterday. So
yeah.
then you have all that extra responsibility, which is what we do and which is why I love this. But you're trying to like almost break the trauma of the child being suspended so many times. It feels like a mess at times. And it's
I'm
just
sure.
like you
Yeah.
guys are there to kind of, in my opinion, like, oh, here, kind of like a lifeline to even just get acquainted with what you can do.
Yeah, and that's all we can do is just try to be a resource. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, you're doing the hardest part of the work. My thought is if we can make it a little bit easier by showing, hey, did you know this was here? Or hey,
Hmm.
did you know that was there? Or even we'll fight for you because I know
Yeah.
you have to run your school, so I'll go to Harrisburg and fight
Yeah.
for the money. You
Yep.
know, it's just again, it's just a shame. But
Mm.
I think what's extra interesting about what you just said is this trauma that kids are going
Yeah.
through. You
Yep.
know, how many kids learn by I'll use by accident, may not be the best phrase, that they're bad kids because
Yes.
they getting, thrown out of places. And it's not because they're bad kids, it's
Nope.
because we, the adults, they have the skill set necessary to help them express themselves in the way that they, in a more appropriate way,
Right.
or to help them regulate because we didn't have
Mm.
the tools or the tricks that
Mm-hmm.
someone with specialized training would have.
Right.
And in our system now, for folks that aren't, special needs schools, our early intervention system is so backed up in
Oh
so
God,
many
yes.
where even if teachers are
Mm.
saying, okay, I recognize something and the family's getting the evaluation, let's get some help in there. I've been hearing about kids 9, 10 month waiting list and still
Yep.
waiting.
Yep.
And if you're 3 and you're waiting 10 months, that's almost a third of your life.
Mm.
That's a
Yeah.
long time to be waiting for some help. And
Mm.
then of course, once you hit the new threshold, the other systems, so we have to kind of start over again, right?
You
So it's
kicked
this
out. You got up
whole
until 2, and then
yeah.
they kick you out, and then it's 3 to 5. And as you're
Yep.
saying, even the service providers from, you know who the service providers are, but
Yeah.
it's always short staffed and there's
Yeah.
never enough. And then you have all these owed services. And then if someone has to go out for an illness or sickness,
Right.
there's nothing there. There's nothing there. And we
Yeah.
can only do so much. I don't know speech. I don't know OT. And 3 to 5, crucial. You know this. Everyone knows
Yeah. Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's just one of those things where, again, I keep going back to and it's funny because I have a lot of friends who get mad at me, because I'm like, we put so much value in the wrong places in
Hmm.
our society, in my opinion.
Yes.
It's funny because I'm not a super duper sports fan,
Hmm.
but I do enjoy certain sports. And my friends were really surprised when I told them I stopped watching the NFL, not because of anything political, but
Mm.
because they weren't paying taxes. And I know
Yeah.
recently they volunteered to pay taxes from last year or two, I hear.
Well, that was
But
nice.
yeah, I know, right? Imagine being able to volunteer to pay. But they lobbied to be considered a nonprofit, and I'm sitting here going, so this huge billions and billions dollar industry, the Super Bowl is the literal biggest entertainment and sports event in the world, well, at least in America. I think the World Cup might be a little bigger worldwide, but it's like the one day event makes more income than some states, and you're
Phew.
not paying taxes on this. I'm like, could you imagine if we as a society, and again, I want to point out the NFL did start paying taxes, so this is not me trying to bash them specifically,
But they
but
tried. So,
right, but but if what if all of us who had the ability
hmm,
just gave back a little bit and
hmm,
said, let's fund instead of doing tax breaks for billionaires,
yeah.
and again, I know we all wish we were billionaires and want to get there one day, but even if I was a billionaire, I'd be more than happy to say, take what you need.
Yeah.
Because I'm never going to spend billions of dollars.
No. No.
If I mean, I can have gold-plated toilet seats, and I'm still not going to spend $1 billion in my lifetime.
People
So,
like us will never be billionaires because there's too much involved on the shady
yeah,
side to become up to that point. So it's just, yeah, I understand that.
yeah, it's just one of those things where I'm personally saying I wish we could actually get to where our values, where we say our values are. Because again, like I
Hmm.
said, no politician. All we're here for the kids. We love our kids. We want to help our kids. And I say, well, are you helping the adults working with them?
Yeah.
Because that's the best way to help the kids.
Yep.
If my kid's teacher, can't afford to pay her rent.
Hmm.
I literally heard a story this week about a homeless teacher.
Hmm.
Who is like, so this teacher is teaching kids and literally has nowhere to go at the end of the day.
Oh,
So it's like
gosh.
this person makes so little money, but is so dedicated that they kept coming back to work every single day for the
Yep.
kids.
And
And
putting their
parents didn't find
money.
out too much. Right.
Yep.
And parents didn't find out too much later because she never complained. She never,
Hmm.
woe is me. I'm here for your kids. So,
Yeah.
so it's like, how do we reconcile this? You know, Everyone says it, whether you're a politician or just a person on the street. Very rarely do you meet people say, screw the kids. Most people say, we
Never.
love kids, you know, and they say, okay, well, let's fund the people working with, let's help, and
Right.
and and not pit us against each other because that's the other
Right.
big deal. well, we fund early education. Where are we taking that from? Are we taking it from K-12? Are we taking
Mm,
it from disabilities? Are we taking it from no, no, no. There's plenty of money to go around.
yep,
There really is. We
yep,
just have to say, let's spend it in the most appropriate places because to me, coming from this deficit, it's not pie, right? There may be a finite amount of money, but that's because we choose to not collect where sometimes where we could, or we choose
yes,
not to use like in Pennsylvania, we have a fund, we have a surplus now in Pennsylvania of billions of dollars. And I know the governor wants to open that up and use some of that money for social programs and to help people. And some people disagree with that and say, well, what are we going to do during a rainy day? And although I believe in saving for rainy days, I think this tool that we're on right now, Zoom, we all became acquainted with because of the
yep,
rainiest years in
yep,
many of our lifetimes.
yep.
And if we survived COVID and still have billions of dollars, we can probably pull again. I'm not saying take every single thing out. I get it, have some savings, but
Right.
we can probably pull some things out and say, let's try to fix some of this system here.
Hmm.
Let's work. We can ramp our way up to building more income so we can keep paying more, but we can start here at least, or at
Oh
least we can
yeah.
start with one time retention bonuses for teachers. How about that?
Yep.
I would want them to be recurring, but even if we started with one time, I'd be amazed and happy to say that's a starting point. Now let's start
Right.
what we did this year. What are we going to do next year to keep those teachers still?
Right.
Because with leaving, it's all this. Again, I apologize. I get passionate. I get on this
That's
kick because
fine.
it's
That's what
it
you
seems like
do.
simple,
It
right?
does seem simple when you're living it every day, or in your case, you're seeing different providers every day. It, like honestly, like just last night, it was just like my brain is so clouded because you want to do
Mm.
so much for so many people ethically and professionally, and you see the progress, but you look at your bank account and you
Right.
can't and you can't knock on the governor's door or the senator's door and say, what's up, man? Like, do you want to see my bank account for my business? Like, I almost want to send these things to them.
Actually, I'm going to push back on that. You can. You absolutely can. Now the
Really?
governor's yes, yeah. Now, mind you, they may not always be there, and you may
Right.
not want to knock on their home door. But in our state and in our country, there are capitals, and these
Mhm.
capitals are required to be open to the public. So
Okay.
you can go to the senator's door and knock on that door and ask for an appointment or drop off materials or talk to an aide if the senator's not there. You can go to the governor's. Like I was literally on the lieutenant governor, the other side, because there's a governor and lieutenant governor. Where we were literally at his office Tuesday. You know,
Mm-hmm.
literally right there. So I know what you mean, and people say you can't. I'm gonna push back and say you can. And
Hmm.
if you can't because of your timing or like especially going through the Capitol that's a drive, blah blah blah, then email, text,
Yep.
phone call, look for the local office because legislators in theory
Hmm.
are supposed to represent the people in their districts, right? If
Right.
I'm a senator, I'm supposed to represent people in my district. If I don't hear from people that this is what they need, it
Hmm.
makes it much easier for me not to do it.
Okay.
And
Yep.
although obviously some people don't do what we want anyway, it is what it is. But it makes it much harder to ignore people when they're showing up and when they're writing letters or emails
Hmm.
or asking for appointments at the office and doing these types of things, because again, if we believe as Americans democracy is the greatest system,
Right.
then we have to actually take full advantage of it.
Right.
Because democracy isn't just I vote for you and you go off and do your thing.
No.
Democracy is I vote for you and then I keep telling you what else I need and you're
Yeah.
supposed to represent me. And even if
Yeah.
I didn't vote for you, you're supposed to represent me. Because that's
Yep.
that's the other thing that I think people miss. If you're a Democrat, Republicans are no good. If you're a Republican, Democrats are no good. I don't care what the letter after your name is.
Right.
I care what you do with your votes once you get into that office.
Hmm.
And we're saying there's a bill that's going to help teachers. Are you voting yes or no?
Right.
Because party lines mean nothing. It's
Right.
about what you're doing as a civil servant to actually help society.
Hmm.
And that's the place I think some of us forget. And I think sometimes people get intimidated and think about, oh, the governor, the
Oh yeah.
senator, the mayor,
Yes.
whomever. They're people.
Yep.
They are literal flesh and blood
Hmm.
people, same problems that you have in many regards, just on a different level. And
Yep.
and just like your job, I'm sure parents have asked you questions, and you're accountable to parents and to your staff and to whatever. They're accountable to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know what you meant, but I want to just remind folks, you actually can
Right.
go down, find their office. Everyone's required to have an office in their district close to where
Knock
you
them
live.
down.
Knock on the door. Hi, I'm Tyrone. I live in your district. I'm a constituent. I'd love to talk to you about throwing your topic. And if I'm
How
not
has
available,
the reception been? So when I we also do it's an ABA company as well. So it's
mm-hmm,
behavioral health. And
mm-hmm,
there was a time where I was helping advocate for different legislative bills that had to do with ABA. So we went to the Capitol, we knocked on doors, and it is intimidating because certain politicians are not as happy to see you and make it
mm-hmm,
known.
mm-hmm.
So in your opinion, overall, what do you feel the reception is to knocking and saying, "Hey, do you have a minute for me?"
Well, honestly, it does depend who your legislator is. Most legislators will at least listen to you or send you to an aide that will listen.
Okay.
Um, I think the most important thing or the most helpful thing people can do
Hmm.
um, is try to figure out who their legislator is.
Hmm.
Most of them have bios on their websites, and what
Yes.
I try to figure out is what's important to you,
Yeah.
because
Write
most
that.
of the time everything is intersectional. You know,
Yep.
I was with the legislator the other day, and she said, help me understand how this helps tourism. And she's a supporter of early education, but she's like, she's like, but that's one of the things that I'm actually big on because I have to bring in part of my job is I'm on a committee and we're trying to bring money into the state and people do tourism. I was
Yep.
like, that's a great question.
Hmm.
What happens when all of the staff somewhere don't have childcare? Like I just
Yep.
heard yeah, one of the big stadiums, all the staff struck today. So it's like, what happens? WrestleMania was in Philadelphia this year, big, huge wrestling event.
Yep.
They ran out of soda halfway through. Well, do you think maybe one of the delivery people's kid was sick and their child care wouldn't take them, so they stayed home?
You
Maybe
never
that's what
know.
happened.
Hmm.
I was like, think about they're almost everything, especially when we talk about early education.
Yep.
Um, Everything can be related back because families depend on this workforce to go to their own jobs.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if I don't have somewhere I can trust that my child is well cared for, loved, and educated,
Right.
and especially like how you're saying, especially in a way that's appropriate for them, because that's
Yeah.
the other piece too, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
if it's not appropriate for my child, you might be a great educator for this kid or for that kid, but if you don't get my kid,
Right.
it's not going to work out.
Right.
So to your question, I always try to figure out, what does this legislature care about? Is this legislature a vet? Well, the
Right.
Army actually is the best childcare system in America. Like literally, it does. They're all
Really?
required to be NACE accredited. Yeah, it is literally the best early education system. They ensure that everybody is NACE accredited and to the highest standard. So it's like,
Hmm.
well, if you believe in the military, well, the military believes in this, and the
Yes.
military's and this is it will sound like a weird argument, but it's a true argument, and the research actually bears this out. The military believes in high quality early education
Hmm.
because kids that get that better start are more qualified for post high school careers, including the military.
I believe
So
it.
their whole thing is it's actually very selfish of us to do this because if mom or dad is a veteran and working here and the kid gets a great start and they look up to mom and dad, then I might get another person to jump
Right.
on, sign up. And that's fine and good and whatever, but we don't make these connections of this person cares about the economy. Well, what happens to the economy when families can't go back to work? This
Hmm.
person cares about, whatever it is. It all comes back to someone needing their child to be somewhere safe and supportive and
Yes.
all those wonderful things so that they can do their job.
Yep.
And I think that so when you talk about people not being receptive, it still can happen.
Gonna
But I
happen.
really try to figure out, what does this legislator care about? What was
Right.
their big issue when they ran? What are people voting for them for? And how do
Right.
I relate it to kids?
Now, um do you ever tie in some, so like this is what you're fighting for, you
Mhm,
kind of research some of the politicians and figure out who also supports it when
mhm.
approaching politicians? Do you bring that up, like, you know?
Yeah. If it's helpful. I mean, it depends on the
Yeah.
politician, if yeah, Governor Shapiro, right?
Mhm.
If Governor Shapiro supports something and I'm going to a member of Democratic leadership,
Hmm.
it's likely that Shapiro is the highest ranking Democrat in the state. Is usually the other leadership will look to him. So I can say, the governor's been supportive of this. Oh, really? That'll
Right.
open an eye.
Right.
The other thing that I like to do is go outside of government. Like we've been working with chambers of commerce recently
Hmm.
because they've been really starting to say childcare is a real issue for us because again, employees aren't showing up to work, so our businesses can't thrive.
Yep.
And getting them, if there are legislators that listen to chambers of commerce because they're business people, and we're here for business people, to have them say, yeah, this isn't just a cutesy
Yeah.
social thing that and the kids are happy and smiley. This is also a business issue
Yeah.
because if their
Yeah.
parent can't work, then my business starts to fail. And
Hmm.
and so really looking at all the different angles you can, and I really stand by kids are everyone's issue because
Yeah.
you either have a kid, know a kid, or were a kid.
Yeah.
There's no one who's an adult now that wasn't a child.
No.
Someone
I
explained that
sure
biology
hope
to
not anyway. Do
me.
you
Right.
do you have any suggestions for the way that a parent could possibly, so for First Up in general, aside from supporting the teachers and potentially children from your support and consulting and advocacy, are there things that you do specifically for parents as well, or are there ways parents can help in this situation?
Absolutely. I mean, so I'm going to give you two. I'll start like kind of easy and then hard, right?
Yeah.
So two of the easiest things that parents can do are literally go to
Oh,
startstrongpa.org,
yep.
startstrongpa.org, right? And sign up as a supporter. Because then you'll get emails with things like, hey, would you be willing to sign this petition? And it's a super simple thing. There it is. Look at it. Beautiful. Yeah. Because that actually means a lot more even than sometimes a teacher signing it or coming to talk. Because they're
Yeah.
saying, oh, these are the people that are receiving the services.
Hmm.
And you can do the same thing at prek4pa.org,
Yep.
prek4pa.org, right? Because there are two different line items, which gets really wonky, and I won't bore your listeners with line items in the budget. But getting getting them just you'll get the alerts. And sometimes it's something as simple as click here and it's putting your address and your name, and
Yep.
it generates an email that goes to your legislator saying, I'm Tyrone Scott. I live in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm a
Hmm.
constituent, and I'm concerned that there's not enough money to support the teachers in my child's classroom.
Yep.
Very simple stuff, right?
Yep.
Um, Past that, you know, families even just talking about what's happening with
Hmm.
your own experience is actually a really big advocacy tool. And obviously you can talk to policymakers, but even just talking to your friends and family.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens sometimes is, we don't share, especially we don't share enough stories about what's happened with our kids past. Boy, I'm tired. Or oh gosh, my kids, the childcare was closed. I couldn't do anything. When you say that, say it and say, you know what, this is a concern. My kid's
Yeah.
childcare shut down,
Hmm.
and I'm upset about it. And ask, has anyone else had this happen? Because
Right.
you might start realizing that there are issues that are more universal, and we
Hmm.
just tend to kind of take them in and maybe grumble under our breath. And again, it doesn't feel like a huge thing to do, but when you start realizing that you also had your kid's childcare shut down, your kid's favorite teacher left,
Yep.
and you start talking about this stuff, you realize you have similarities, and now this can become a message or a movement.
Yeah.
Again, every 2 years, our House of Representatives in Pennsylvania is up.
Hmm.
So people are running for office every 2 years.
Hmm.
They will be out in your community either this year or next year. It's every two
Right.
years.
Right.
If you know this is happening, this might become the place where you'll see them out and you can say, hey, did you know my kid's childcare shut down? So did my brothers. So did my cousin. So did my best friend.
Hmm.
What are you going to do about it?
Right.
And just getting people to think about this, because I think what happens too is we become the fetus. We think
Hmm.
that, well, there's
Hmm.
nothing that can be done. Or we think
Yes.
the childcare owner, we look at just a small business and say, well, they shut down. I guess that's their business decision, or they couldn't
Yep.
run a business very well, or
Yep.
whatever. And that's not typically the case for a lot of our childcare providers and pre-K providers. It's just a matter of numbers,
Yeah.
especially if you're taking subsidized families in,
Yep.
because the subsidy rate is less than what most market value would say it is. And
Hmm.
then when you look at market value, you can only charge families so much.
They
You know,
can't afford it. It's too
right,
expensive.
right. And I mean, so it's like it's this weird dichotomy where people say, again, good old supply and demand curve. If there's demand, raise your price. Well, in theory, that makes sense
Hmm.
until I realize that the family that I'm trying to serve most people who need childcare are either in the beginning of their career or the end of their career, which
Yep.
means they're either at the beginning of their salary range or they're on a fixed salary or fixed income
Hmm.
of some sort. And that demand curve doesn't work the same way when if I make $40,000 a year and I have two toddlers,
Yeah.
toddler care is not cheap. There's
No.
a very good chance that once the taxes come out of my check and I'm
Uh-uh.
recognizing I'm probably losing $33,000 a year, that most of that money is going just to care of my kids
Yep.
before I've paid rent, before I've paid for food, before I've
Mm.
paid for anything else. And this is what I think people also miss. And I think even just talking about that as parents, as friends, as community
Yes.
supporters, the more people talk about it, the more it becomes an issue that politicians listen to, even if you're
Mm.
not talking directly to them.
Right.
You know,
Right.
um, you think about some of the stuff that's pervasive on our social media, some of it positive, some of it not, but
Hmm.
it's the fact that people are talking about it, and that's why it becomes a thing. You
Right.
know, nothing becomes viral because no one talks about it. It becomes viral because people talk about it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so the more we talk about this stuff, the more chances that someone who's important is going to hear it, even if it's
Yes.
just a rumbling and start going, maybe
Hmm.
I need to pay attention to that. There are a
Hmm.
lot of people in my district saying that they can't find good quality childcare. A lot of people in my district saying that their child's been waiting for early intervention services for a while. Hmm.
Yes. Yeah.
And when they go down to Harrisburg and they sit in those little caucus rooms and they have these discussions, then maybe that person goes, "Hey, guys, is
Yep.
anyone else hearing this?"
Yeah.
And if parents are doing it all over, then you start getting stuff, then you start getting movements, then you start getting bills drafted, money put in. And it really it's it looks like a complex situation, and in some ways it is, but in other
Yeah.
ways it's also super duper simple.
Yeah.
These are people elected to represent us and our needs. If we
Yep.
tell them our needs, then we need to then there should be some follow-up. And we should feel empowered to follow up with our legislators and ask them if they're
Hmm.
not meeting our needs. Why aren't you meeting my needs?
As
You
opposed
know?
to being like nervous, as opposed to
Yeah.
feeling like you don't matter and they won't listen. It doesn't matter if they want to listen. We have to make them listen.
Yes.
Are there ever
Yes.
opportunities for like a public forum where the
Yes.
politician is present and you can just kind
Yes.
of take the floor?
Yes. In fact, we just held two of them recently at childcare, one at a childcare center and one at a church attached to a childcare center. So we're always looking for people that are looking to host.
Yeah.
Because all we need is a place.
Yep.
And so what First Up will do when we work with numbers of partners around the state is we just do the invitations to the legislators. We'll reach
Yeah.
out and say, hey, Senator
Hmm.
so and so, hey, Representative such and such. In fact, I'm doing one Tuesday, the next week, come to think of it. Would you like to come here
Yeah.
and hear from your constituents around this topic? And of course, you have to worry about scheduling. I don't want to say anyone that says I can't come this day is a horrible person because legislators are very busy.
Yeah.
But when if you get your scheduling right,
Hmm.
you can definitely do that kind of
Hmm.
thing. And I think it's important. And I
Yeah.
also encourage people that if you hear about something happening, even if it's not about kids' issues, and your legislator's going to be somewhere, if kids' issues are important to you, go to
Go.
it.
Go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people at the Chamber of Commerce will tell you all the time that myself and one of my colleagues, whenever they have legislative events and they ask, are there questions for the audience? Our hands are always up first. And some of the listeners know us now. They go, childcare. Here's what I'm going to do. Don't even ask the question. Here's what I'm trying to do. Because, again, that's what they're there for.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too. If you are nervous,
Hmm.
buddy up with someone if you can, including us
Yeah.
at First. I
Yep.
mean, part of my job is literally going out with people to meet their legislator.
Hmm.
So all you have to do is tell them your story. You don't have to
Hmm.
worry about facts. You don't have to worry about the fact that only 33% of children are in high quality childcare. You don't have to worry about the fact
Right.
that there's $284 million that are needed to actually pay teachers to do it. Like that's my job.
Yeah.
You tell them what's important to you.
Right.
I'm a dad. I'm disappointed that my kid's favorite teacher quit and now they're working at my Wawa.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to go back. And I see him because he makes my coffee every morning. He tells me, I wish I could be with your kid, but
Right.
this pays more, has better benefits.
Yep.
And what can you do to help that? And
Mm.
we'll like First Up or other advocates can come and say, here's the stuff that if you don't know what you can do, we can tell you. We've crunched the
Right.
numbers. Here's what has to happen. But it's just having conversations. Um, Again,
Mm-hmm.
I get people get nervous, and I'm never going to tell someone how to feel. You're allowed to be nervous, but what I'm also just going to say is there are people, and myself included, who are here to support you.
Yep.
So you speak to your comfort level, and I'll try to help you out
Yep.
because I find that most people, they're nervous at first, and once the conversation starts, like, oh, that was easy. Like, yeah,
Yes.
they're
Yeah.
just people.
We
They're just
had
people.
a star for recognition ceremony is what we called it. And
Hmm.
we were able to have several politicians come.
Hmm.
And it was Tina Davis, Brian Fitzpatrick, and Senator
Oh,
Sam Sear. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but his someone came to stand in his place, but
mhm.
they wanted to listen. It didn't
Yeah.
feel fake in the moment. It
Mhm.
didn't feel, they were emotional. They were
Mhm.
really enjoying the story. They loved
Mhm.
the school. And it's like, yeah, that's another person. It is a person that you're
Yeah.
just telling a story to. You don't have to worry about, oh, they're not better than you and they don't think they're better than you. You just tell your story. That's it.
Yep. Yep. And I think what's really cool what you just said, and I don't know if you even recognize this, that was a mixture of Democrats and Republicans, which is
Yeah.
great because again,
Yep.
it shouldn't be a D or an R issue, red or blue. It's a
Yep.
kid issue and helping
Hmm.
the people that work with our children.
Yeah, exactly. You're not getting anywhere with the back and forth with the
Yeah.
battle between politicians.
Yeah,
No,
it's not helpful. And
no.
I like to think that, groups like First Up and a lot of our friends in early learning Pennsylvania, we look at this as a nonpartisan issue. We don't say we expect the Democrats, we expect the Republicans. We say we expect all of you
Yes.
because again, there's no I don't know any districts that don't have any children. Right?
No.
There might be some that are more senior heavy. There might be some with less kids than
Right.
others, but there are no districts in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with no children. Not that I'm
Right.
aware of it.
Right.
So
Not that I know of. Not that
yeah,
I know of at all. Now I have another question. So
sure.
if you're going to the Capitol and you're just
Mhm.
like, you know what, today I'm gonna go here. If I can't speak to anyone, I
Mhm.
packaged up envelopes for every.
Mhm. Mhm.
Does it make a difference if you go with a group of people? Is that like frowned upon? Or
No,
is it
no. It honestly, so I wouldn't discourage someone who wants to go by themselves, but I actually prefer taking groups. I think it
mm-hmm,
shows strength in numbers.
mm-hmm,
The other thing, so one of the things that we try to do with our partners around the state is we literally try to have a group of people talking about kids in the Capitol every single day they're in session. So we do what we call Capitol caravans, where we literally go down to the Capitol with parents, with teachers, with
yeah,
directors, with just supporters, and we take a group. And sometimes we don't have appointments, sometimes we do. But
mm-hmm,
the fact that you're going to keep seeing us, it makes us memorable so that these
yeah,
legislators are going, that's that group that cares about the kids again. You
yeah,
know, some people do what they call lobby days where they'll send a whole bunch of people one day, and that's great. Our strategy is a bunch of people every single day, so that whenever they go into the lunchroom, there's a group of us sitting with shirts that say like "Start Strong for Kids" and
yeah.
"KK for PA" and "My Kid Matters" and things like this. So every time they're going to get a coffee or a sandwich, they go, "Oh, someone's here about those kids again,
It's in
huh?"
their face.
Right. It's funny. I was telling this story the other day. I actually helped the legislator write legislation around kids in a lunchroom once
Oh
because I
gosh.
I saw him. I was like, "Hey, Representative so and so, can I speak to you for a second while you're grabbing your sandwich?" And I walked him to the line, and he was like, "That's interesting." And we sat down at the table. He's like, "So what if we did this?" And we started coming up with the bones of a piece of legislation that he sponsored to try to help families and kids. And
Wow.
again, it's just conversation. It's literally
Yeah.
just a matter of share your story
Yeah.
because there are so many other families that have the same story,
Mm-hmm.
but if
Mm-hmm.
we don't say it, no one knows. It's the
No.
whole of a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it.
Yep.
If your kid gets suspended because they have special needs and
Yeah.
and you don't tell anybody, who knows besides you,
Nobody
right? And
would
your
know.
child, right?
No.
So you need to say, here's the issue I'm having. We should be funding our early intervention system better because my child is a good kid who
Yep.
just needed a little bit of help. But there was no way there to help this poor teacher who didn't
Yep.
have the skill set. And that's not a slight on him or her. It's just not all of our teachers do.
Right.
And that's why we have an early intervention system with support that's supposed to come in and help. Right?
Yes.
So, so,
Yes.
so, so, yeah.
Ugh, you could go on forever about what's needed. It's a shame. But, thank God for people like you, that whole company. Um, again, never knew anything about it, which is, embarrassing to say, but I
Huh.
will post this again. It's backwards, but I'll post this underneath because we have both. And then I also have the paper with the QR code.
Oh, awesome. Yes,
And
awesome.
I actually, every single one of my parents and staff did that the first day we got it.
Thank you.
So we just like to be like, these girls are a great example for
Mhm.
doing everything that they possibly can. Most of them don't even have kids here. They just know, like, all right, do we have to fight for this? We'll go with you. So I'm really, really excited because I want to do a day where we just go to the Capitol. And I think that would be like so much fun. Maybe have some parents come with and just make a day out of it.
I think that's great. And what I'll do is I'll actually send you an email separately, and you can post it if you want. We
Sure.
have a link with the days that we're personally going down. And
Okay.
like, so if folks want to come anyway, then you can actually have one of us with you as you're talking to legislators, especially for people who might be nervous. And again,
Yes.
there's nothing to be
Yep.
nervous about, but I get it because if
Hmm.
you haven't done it before, it's a new experience.
Yeah.
Um, but so we're there to support you. But because like I said, we partner with other organizations to try to make sure someone's down there every day. I'll send you an email with a link to the days we know we're going to be down there.
Okay. I think that sounds great.
Yeah, of course.
Well, did you have anything else to say? Because that was a lot, which is fantastic. Um, and in simple terms for all of us to understand. And it's a fantastic organization. You're helping people like me. Thank you. And my parents are really enjoying this advocacy portion of it. So hopefully, whoever's listening, you guys also jump in on the advocating and we can make things better for our kids, better for our parents, better for our mental health. I mean, these things affect your everyday life. So why not get involved? It's a text, it's a phone call, it's you're being helped by Tyrone to go down there. He's talking for you. Just consider it. So yeah, I really appreciate your time. I know this was a long time coming and we had to reschedule a few times, but I definitely appreciate your time. Do you want to leave our parents with anything special or anything?
Just remember that as a parent, you
Yeah.
have a power that a lot of people don't recognize.
Hmm.
Being a parent is one of the most rewarding, but also one of the most difficult jobs in the world, just like being a teacher. And
Hmm.
use that power, that power that you didn't realize you had, to wake up in the middle of the night and walk through the dark and get that bottle ready.
Yeah.
Use that power of taking a screaming toddler and being able to give them that hug that calms them.
Yep.
Take that power of being able to work a whole day, come home, listen to Paw Patrol on repeat, and not lose your
Hmm.
mind to
Yep.
advocate for yourself, for your
Yep.
children, for those working with them.
Yep.
Because you are a superhero, you are a rock star, and don't let someone tell you differently. Just
Nope.
because one day you came to work and you had, Cheetos on the back of your pants because your kid tried to give you a hug on the way in. You're
Right.
still a rock star, you're still a hero, and we
Right.
love and support you. And please use us to help as much as you can.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you. It was very nice meeting you. Make
Okay.
sure you email me. I would love to relay as much as I can and keep in touch because I want to see you one day up there at Harrisburg. I'll be there.
Absolutely.
Have a great day.
Take care.
Bye.